So if you've ever thought about launching your own thing, the idea of Swiss bureaucracy can feel a bit like planning a military operation.
Right.
But the reality, from what our sources are saying, is that starting small going independent is actually getting more and more streamlined.
It really is.
Today, we are doing a full deep dive into the simplest path to entrepreneurship in Switzerland, setting up a sole proprietorship or Einzelunternehmen. And we're really focusing on the key rules you have to know for 2025.
And our mission for you today is pretty simple.
Huh?
We're your shortcut. We're going to cut through all the noise and just pull out the essential requirements, the real benefits, and critically, the risks that really define going solo in Switzerland.
Cool.
By the end of this, you'll have a clear, actionable roadmap. You'll understand the strategic trade-offs, not just, a checklist.
So let's start with the basics then. What exactly is an Einzelunternehmen? It sounds very formal.
It's the one-person show. I mean, that's the easiest way to think of it. It's designed for freelancers, consultants, creators, anyone providing a service without needing a big corporate setup.
Right.
The main thing is its simplicity. The business and the owner are, legally speaking, the exact same thing. It's the fastest way to get from an idea to sending your first invoice.
And on that point, that legal unity, the sources highlight one single non-negotiable rule. This is the thing everyone has to just burn into their memory.
Absolutely. We have to lead with this because it changes everything. It's the concept of unlimited personal liability.
Okay.
Unlike a limited liability company, an LLC, there is zero separation. If the business gets into debt or faces a lawsuit, you, the owner, are fully liable. That means your house, your personal savings, they're all legally exposed.
That is a staggering trade-off for simplicity.
Eh.
So if I'm a consultant giving advice, how real is that risk? I mean, what can I actually do to protect myself if the business structure doesn't?
And that's where the deep dive really begins. The risk is very real, especially in fields where, mistakes can be costly. Since the structure offers no legal shield, your protection has to be external.
So insurance.
Exactly. The key nugget here is insurance. Professional indemnity insurance, Berufshaftpflichtversicherung, it's not legally required for everyone, but for anyone in finance, consulting, tech, it's a must. It basically shifts the financial risk from your private assets onto an insurance policy. It's the safety net the government doesn't mandate, but you absolutely should.
Okay, that reframes the whole thing. So assuming we've got our heads around that personal exposure, what are the basic requirements to get this thing set up in 2025? What's the checklist?
The requirements are intentionally minimal. First, you need a main office or at least a branch in Switzerland. Second, you have to be a resident.
Meaning a Swiss passport or a valid permit?
A valid permit that lets you work for yourself, yes. And here's the biggest barrier they've removed. There is no minimum capital required. You don't need to lock up 20,000 francs in a bank like you do for an LLC or a GmbH.
Zero capital is a huge advantage for anyone starting out. But while there's no money requirement, the rules on the business name are surprisingly strict.
They are, and it actually loops right back to the liability issue. The law says the owner's surname must be in the business name. It's not a suggestion, it's a mandate.
So you could have Keller Web Design or Muller Financial Coaching.
Exactly, but Keller and Muller have to be in there.
But wait, if I'm just a contractor and I'm not even in the commercial register because my turnover is low, why does the government care so much about my last name in the business name?
It's all about transparency. Because you and the business are one and the same, the name has to signal that liability right away. When a client sees Miller Coaching, they know they're dealing directly with Mrs. Miller, the individual.
Okay.
It's the public signal that there's no corporate shield.
That makes a lot of sense. So step one is the idea and choosing that name. Where does the actual official paperwork begin?
The really crucial part, step 3, is registering with your local Social Security office. That's the SVA. This is the piece of paper that officially confirms your status as selbstständig or self-employed.
And what does being confirmed as selbstständig really mean? What does it commit you to? For someone coming from a regular job, this is a big shift.
It is. This is where you become responsible for your own social contributions. Once the SVA recognizes you, you start paying into the main pillars.
AHV, the pension stuff.
The AHV is the big one, yes, the old age insurance, but also disability insurance, income compensation, all based on your estimated income.
Is it a flat rate? Or
No, And that's the great thing for new businesses. It's a sliding scale. If you're earning very little at the start, your contributions are minimal. As your profit grows, the rate goes up to about 10 or 11%. The SBA just asks for an estimate for your first year, and then they adjust it based on your actual tax return later.
So that takes care of the mandatory part. Now let's get to that big number you hear about all the time. The 100,000 franc revenue threshold. This is key for the commercial register, right?
This is the dividing line. If you're making, or you project you'll make, 100,000 francs in revenue a year, you must register in the handles register. Below that, it's totally optional.
So if I'm just running a little side hustle, I can skip it, avoid the fees. But why would I choose to register and pay that, 120 to 250 francs if I don't have to?
So what is trust and legal weight?
Okay.
Registering voluntarily just signals that you're serious. A lot of bigger companies, even some banks, might only want to work with registered businesses. It feels less risky to them. But more importantly, registration gets you a unique legal ID number.
And that helps with?
It makes everything easier, opening bank accounts, getting financing, and you can properly register a trademark. An unregistered business can't do that. It's a small investment in your credibility and your future.
That's a really strong argument for doing it early. Okay, so once we're registered, voluntarily or not, let's talk about the money. Bank accounts and VAT.
Right, step 5, the bank account. Legally, you don't actually have to open a separate business account. You could just use your personal one.
But I'm guessing that's a bad idea.
It's a terrible idea. We strongly, strongly recommend a dedicated business account.
Why, though? If I'm legally responsible either way.
One word: accounting. When it's tax time and your business invoices are mixed in with your personal grocery shopping, it's a nightmare. A separate account gives you a clean record. It makes it so much easier to prove your business expenses to the tax office. It saves a massive headache.
Right. And I imagine that clean separation is even more important when we get to VAT registration. Step 6, which again is all about that 100,000 franc number.
Correct. VAT registration is mandatory the second you cross 100,000 in annual revenue. But just like the commercial register, you can register voluntarily before you hit that number.
And what's the strategic advantage there? Why register for VAT early?
It's all about recovering the tax you pay on your own expenses, what's called input tax.
Oh,
If you're starting a business that needs a lot of upfront investment, expensive computers, machinery, software, you're paying VAT on all of that. If you're voluntarily registered for VAT, you can claim that VAT back from the government, even if you're not collecting it from customers yet. It can seriously reduce your initial cash burn.
that is a very practical tip.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move to what sounds like the simplest part of the Einzelunternehmen. Taxes. No separate corporate tax.
This is probably the biggest relief for most people. The profit your business makes is just added to your personal income. It's all taxed together on your personal tax return at your local cantonal rate. Simple as that.
And does that simplicity carry over to bookkeeping?
Absolutely. Especially if you're not in the commercial register, the requirements are minimal. You just need to keep a simple record of your income and your expenses. You don't need a full double entry accounting system like a big company. It's a huge part of the appeal.
Okay, so the startup costs are almost zero, the admin is low. But what happens when you start to grow? A common question is, can a sole proprietor actually hire people?
Yes, you absolutely can. But, and this is a critical point, the second you hire your first employee, your administrative life gets a lot more complex. You instantly become an official employer.
And what does that trigger? What new paperwork am I looking at?
A lot. You have to register as an employer with the SVA. You have to start withholding Social Security from their pay and submitting it. You need mandatory accident insurance for them. And if their salary is high enough, you're looking at mandatory occupational pensions. It's a big step up in responsibility.
And even with all that new complexity, the fundamental risk, the personal liability, that doesn't change, does it?
Not one bit. We're right back to that first rule. You, the owner, are still personally and fully liable. If you have payroll debts or an employee sues you, it's still your private assets on the line. Adding staff just adds more potential risk to that unlimited liability structure.
That really makes you think about the long-term plan for this structure. But what about the other end of the life cycle? If it doesn't work out, is it easy to shut down?
It's just as simple as starting up. You just deregister from the SVA, and if you are registered, you take your name out of the commercial register. As long as your debts are paid, it's very quick. Easy in, easy out.
Okay, let's pull all of this together and look at the real trade-offs for 2025. What are the core advantages that make this the go-to for so many people?
It's all about efficiency. It's fast to set up, requires zero capital, has the absolute minimum bureaucracy and paperwork, and gives you total flexibility. For a solo consultant or freelancer, it's pretty much a perfect fit.
But that speed comes with a real price. So let's contrast that with the big disadvantages, especially when you compare it to a GmbH, the Swiss LLC.
That comparison really shines a light on the liability gap. The unlimited liability is the main risk, always. With a GmbH, you have to put up that 20,000 francs in capital, and the setup is more complex. But in return, your private assets are completely shielded.
And what about tax planning? You said the income is just taxed personally.
And that simplicity becomes a weakness as you grow. With a sole proprietorship, you have very few options for tax optimization.
Ah,
In a GmbH, you can pay yourself a salary, which has Social Security taken out, and also pay out dividends, which are taxed differently. It allows for much smarter planning once you're making serious money. In an Einzelunternehmen, it's all just income, so you hit those higher tax brackets much faster.
and looking specifically at 2025, what's new? Are things getting even easier?
Yes, the government back end is finally catching up. The big technological nugget is the integration of the federal platform EasyGov. In many cantons, like Zurich and Zug, using EasyGov has cut the initial SVA registration time from weeks down to, in some cases, less than a week.
That's a huge difference. And you mentioned AI tools.
Yeah, the automated accounting tools are getting really good now, and they're specifically designed for the Swiss system. They can handle the simple accounting needs of a sole proprietorship almost automatically. This just lowers that administrative burden even more.
Okay, so let's synthesize. If you're listening right now and thinking about taking the plunge, who is this structure really for in 2025?
It's for the service provider, the freelancer, the independent professional. Anyone starting an idea quickly without needing a lot of capital or taking on big risks.
Right.
If your main asset is your time and your expertise and you have good professional insurance, this is your launch pad.
And what's that one central trade-off they need to be thinking about when they make the final call?
It really boils down to risk versus admin. You're trading speed and low cost for total personal risk. If you see yourself scaling fast, hiring a team, taking on big contracts, then the extra cost and complexity of a GmbH is a necessary shield. If you're starting small and managing risk with insurance, the sole proprietorship is the way to go.
That's a very sharp way to put it.
Yeah.
But before we finish, let's leave our listener with one final provocative thought to build on all of this.
Okay. Since that 100,000 franc revenue number dictates so much mandatory commercial registration, mandatory VAT, you should really think about what happens when you anticipate hitting it. If your business plan shows you crossing that line in, say, 18 months, it can be strategically smarter to voluntarily register for both the commercial register and VAT right from day one.
Get ahead of it.
Exactly. You immediately look more credible, you can start recovering VAT on all your startup costs, and you avoid a messy administrative transition later. You should always be thinking ahead. Make sure the simple structure you choose today is serving your future growth, not just your current needs.